Daily Broadside, day 106. This morning I went to Lowe's early to get, among other things, some drywall mud. And the drywall mud that I needed was up on the very top shelf of the entire metal rack system that they've got there. I didn't need the 62-pound bucket. I just needed a small bucket for what I was doing. And so I called over, and as per usual, nobody was working at Lowe's. So they were like, we'll have somebody there for you in a minute. So somebody finally shows up about 15 minutes later. Now, mind you, I needed like one or two of these things, right? And I can climb. I can just go up there, and it's only 20 feet off the ground, grab a couple, toss them down, and roll out. But it was 10 or 15 minutes before somebody shows up, and around the corner comes a forklift with a person walking in front of it, waving the flags, making sure everybody's out of the way. And then when they got to me, they shooed me out of the way, and then the lady with the flags disappears, and then she comes back a couple minutes later, and she's got this barricade system that rolls out and blocks the aisle. And then they went and disappeared again and went and got a yellow gate that, you know, blocks off the other end of the aisle. And then the gate had to be put on the aisle behind it just in case, you know, it flipped off the backside and crushed somebody. I realized people have been hurt and injured. And but you know, it was 30 minutes before I got this mud in my hands, and everybody, you know, it basically shut down the two lumber aisles for a good 30 minutes while I waited for this stuff. And they make stairs, people, and it'd be a lot easier. I understand, you know, it's a pretty light item. You wouldn't necessarily need a lot of strength to carry that back down some stairs. Maybe it would be if it was the 62-pound jar, but it was insane. We just shut down everything while we were doing that. I watched Borat the other night, and fairly certain that movie couldn't be made in 2022. I heard yesterday that Duracell has now come out with some bitter-tasting batteries. It's a kind of coating that they put on the battery so that young kids will not put them in their mouth. And you may think to yourself, why would someone do that? Well, when I was somewhere around 5 to 7 years old, I put a battery in my mouth that somehow leaked onto my tongue, the acid, and I can still remember how awesome that like 7 or 8 hour period of drinking milk and calling the poison control center and everything else and whatnot. That's when we had the Mr. Yuck is green, Mr. Yuck is mean stickers. They didn't put them on batteries. I am so annoyed, as we all are, of people that walk through stores talking on their phone with it right here on speakerphone. Nobody cares about your stupid conversation, and frankly, nobody wants to hear it at all. So please cease and desist with talking. And I passed a guy today, like 4 different times, he's still talking on the phone. Like, just nobody wants to hear any of your conversation. It's obnoxious. It's like you might as well have your dog in Lowe's. And lastly, I am not a fan of K-Cups because they are so stupidly unrecyclable. We have just put tons and tons of these things in the landfill, and by virtue of that, the Pacific trash reef that we've got floating out in the ocean. Not a fan of coffee to begin with, but if we're going to do it, I think we should go back to just a big old can of Sanka. Sanka, coffee for men.